Hey, so I have compiled a FNAF timeline that I think works pretty well considering all the, misbits of information we have regarding it. So, this is like my third take of this because I was mainly too tired after recording for like an hour straight, and only getting to like the third game when I have, like 2 other games after that. So, anyways, I'm going to get right into it. It's 10:30. I'm starting earlier than I normally did, which is, 11:30. Anyways, I want to get this done, hopefully quickly. So, first I'm going to start with definitions of terms I'm going to be using throughout this quite frequently. There is the word remnant. Stop texting me. My friend's texting me about math homework that I still need to do. That's due tomorrow. Anyways, remnant is a type of liquid that is basically like the glue connecting a soul to, some sort of metal. Normally metal. But yeah. So the reason when remnant is put under intense heat, it kind of melts is because it's like that glue is disintegrating. So many times remnant is used throughout the FNAF world, and that's basically how a lot of it is able to exist. Agony is another one that goes hand in hand. It is the intense feeling of agony that latches itself onto a piece of AI, which allows for the conscious of the person to continue living. And then an illusion disc, which is what can be seen in FNAF 5 when you open up Freddy's chest cavity. It is a small $50 sized coin that can be physically seen. It creates constantly changing high-pitched frequencies that only the subconscious is able to pick up. When overwhelmed by these frequencies and patterns, it can change the listener's perception as to what is really happening around them and change things around them to be what they expect it to be. So illusion discs, whatever is caused, cannot be forced. You cannot force someone to see shadows unless they already perceive shadows as being there, if that makes sense. There are side effects to illusion discs, which is if you are exposed for too long, you can feel sick. And then there's also a maximum range, of which after they will not affect visually, and images are able to be blurry or distorted under these discs. So yeah, that is the basics of the definitions. Anyways, so we're going to just go quickly over the books and how canon they are. So the Twisted Ones trilogy is canon regarding like the storyline and the mechanics, basically like Remnant, Agony, Illusion Discs, etc. And they take place in the same world, but they do not overlap very often. So, like, think of it as the games as being William's side and then the books as being Henry's side. So, like, after Charlotte dies, Charlie is created, and that's when the books take over. I have not read the books either. I just know quite a bit about them. And that's also because I have not read them. That is why the Fazbear Fright series and Tales of the Pixaplex are both non-canon unless stated otherwise. Anyways, let's finally get on to it. 5 minutes in. Fazbear Entertainment and Afton Robotics. I'm going to start in the 1970s, which is before any of the games take place. Funny. Ironic that the acronym for these two companies is FEAR. So, anyways, we know about Afton Robotics because of the Twisted Ones trilogy, where there was an illusion disc found with the name Afton Robotics on it. And then this whole story takes place in Hurricane, Utah, USA, which is also known from the books. Okay, so really quick, how this whole franchise started is from Fredbear and Friends, which can be seen in the FNAF 4 TV series. It is a cartoon that's basically like Barney and Friends, and it is how William and Henry got the theme for their restaurant. It's the idea surrounding it. Basically, the show started to gain popularity, and that's why there are plushies of the animatronics and, like, you know, toys such as the finger trap, spring trap thing, Spring Bonnie, yeah. But no actual animatronics. So they weren't made yet, obviously. Eventually, the franchise does end up making toy animatronics based off of the toys, but yeah. He and Henry created the company together, and while Henry was more the business side, Afton definitely handled more of the designing and creating of the animatronics. First, they were normal ones, obviously just made to entertain kids, bring in money, but then after more tragic events happened within their lives, the Aftons and Emily's, he decided to start killing kids, basically. And that's what the suits were used, or like the animatronics were used for. Together, they created the Fredbear's Family Diner, which is FNAF 4. And then at first, the whole reason they created it was basically a place for Evan and Charlotte to, you know, have fun, make friends, all that kind of stuff, enjoy their favorite shows. And obviously money, but you know what I mean. And then, just quick side note, Mrs. Afton and William are most likely going through a divorce right now because of William's abusive tendencies towards his children and most likely his wife. Eventually she will end up killing herself, but that is before Charlotte's death. Just, it's before Charlotte's death, which is in FNAF 2. So yeah, let's move on to FNAF 4, which is 1983. So now we are finally in Fredbear's Family Diner. And before we start, like, the actual game lore, Elizabeth and Mrs. Afton are not seen because of child custody rights. So this would explain why neither of them are visible because of the divorce going on. And Mrs. Afton has not killed herself yet, but she is not present. Same with Elizabeth. It's why Elizabeth has a room, but she's not in it, basically. It's a way to explain it. So it's Evan's birthday, and he really just wants to go home, be with his toys, which, you know, he doesn't really have any friends, so he calls his toys his friends. But William makes him come to the pizzeria because it's the reason it was built, for him and Charlotte. Michael has developed a sort of hate towards his brother, and while this could be for many, many reasons, I believe it is mainly out of jealousy and insecurity. Since William is abusive, which we do know for a fact because of Midnight Motorists, it is likely, and also it's not out of the blue that a murderer is abusive. Anyways, it is likely that Michael has been on the receiving end of his behavior because the person in front of the TV is most likely Michael. So Michael has developed a hate towards Evan, and this is because Evan is seen as the favorite among the three. So there's a trope of whenever there's a trio of children, and it is the scapegoat, the golden child, and the forgotten one. And this fits the Aftons perfectly. Michael is the scapegoat, Evan is the golden, and Elizabeth is the forgotten. So basically, this is why Michael bullies Evan a lot, because he wants to receive that validation from his friends, and you know, he wants basically to be seen as a person, even if it is a bad person, because that means that he wouldn't be seen as the scapegoat. Like, he would be able to take responsibility for his own actions instead of just taking responsibility for others. Because Evan, this is also just a little tidbit I thought of while doing this whole thing. Evan doesn't know where Michael will appear, so that's likely why we don't know where the animatronics will end up appearing, because, you know, when Michael would scare Evan, he doesn't know when he's going to be scared, where he's going to be scared. So that's likely why we don't know where the animatronics will appear. At least that's what I think. So anyways, Michael really wants Evan to fear the animatronics, and in order to accomplish this, he would most likely put on some sort of animatronic suit, either the Fredbear or the Spring Bonnie, considering they are the only two made, and will stand outside of their house, which, you know, mainly Evan's room. And this is because of the footprints in Midnight Motorists right outside of Evan's room. And also, we know that animatronics can go outside because of the FNAF 4 opening screen when there are animatronics outside. And then William could not be the one doing this, which was an original idea I had, which is why I'm including this. And he could not be doing this because he wants Evan to, you know, have fun at this place. He wants his golden child to have a good childhood. Obviously, that didn't work. Anyways, by this point, Evan has already been bitten, and obviously I'm sure everyone knows why he was bitten, but just quick, you know, going over. Because Evan was crying, and the way that the animatronics work, they operate by something called spring locks, which basically means that when they come into contact with moisture, they will close. And that's why his head was chomped, because of the tears running down his face. Anyways, it is likely that the 8-bit cutscenes between each night are more or less nightmares, and it's like the saying, light flashes before your eyes, like when you're about to die. We know that by the end of the game he ends up flatlining, and this could just be his imagination replaying his last few days before his death. Because of the head trauma and the fact that he's a child, it's easy to infer that his recreations of the nights are not always correct. This is proven by 2 instances when Scott says, what's seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child, and this is put into practice at the end of night 2, when William helps an employee put on the costume, and Evan sees this and assumes the worst, that, you know, basically he's like, oh my god, what if I get killed and stuffed into that suit? Because he doesn't see, you know, his father helping an employee inside of a suit. What he sees is most likely along the lines of shadow puppets. And this is supported by the lines, you need to get past them, aka the shadows, which is basically when you walk off of screen and then back on, otherwise this scene will not be triggered. And then the Fredbear plush tells Evan, you know what will happen if he catches you in regards to the costume employee showing up. He was scared that if he went to the restaurant for his birthday, he would die by the hands of getting stuffed into a suit. Because what he sees is a person getting stuffed into a suit. Another note about about the suit being stuffed into the safe room or the back room, is in FNAF 3, when Phone Guy says multiple and simultaneous spring lock failures. It is believed that since the Spring Bonnie suit is stuffed into the back, it was used to either kill multiple employees or one employee but impale them several times. Rumors, mainly. Anyways, back to the main storyline. Sorry about that. So in 4 points, there will be the mention of a brown-haired girl with the Spring Bonnie doll because of the TV series. It is made to be a finger trap. And this is where the inspiration for plush trap within Evan's nightmares come in. And this is regarding Scott's line, terrible things come in small packages. Basically, plush trap is canon. And I know that was a debate for a while. I don't know if it still is, but plush trap is canon in my version of the timeline. Anyways, by now, he is 100% in the hospital and basically on the verge of death, most likely reliving his memories and fighting them. So he finds comfort within the plushies, obviously, even the decapitated Foxy head, which is theorized or confirmed to have been Michael who cut off his head and is using it as a mask. So he finds comfort within the toys, but like knowing they're from the TV series, but then seeing the animatronics in real life and knowing them personally, along with the fear that Michael has instilled in him, he's grown to hate the animatronics, and he sees the plushies as like a safe haven and his friends. So like when the Foxy plushie is in the closet after Foxy has calmed down, it's, you know, a sign of safety because Foxy's, you know, calm, he's gone, he's not going to attack, he's safe. So it's basically like the same thing where it's everything is okay now. And then his brother often appears within these like 8-bit cutscenes or whatever because of how much of an impact he had on his final days. You know, how often he was seen, and that's why, you know, we only see so many people because only so many people left an impact, and whoever did always held some sort of significance, unless it's like the Balloon Boy character where it doesn't even matter. But like the Finger Trap Girl appears twice. Michael appears multiple times. You know, William appears when he's stuffing the person inside the suit. All that kind of stuff. So any sort of character, you know, that is brought up is in some way important. So by this point, William has started his descent into madness, and his quest for immortality has begun. He's started to try and find ways to bring his son back, more desperate than ever, and this is where the Fredbear plush comes in. So Fredbear has 2 different hexadecimal colors regarding his speech, and I believe that Fredbear is literally an imaginary friend because he has no friends, and no one can ever see Fredbear, so it would make sense, like the walkie-talkie theory doesn't make sense in, like, you know, like practice, it doesn't make sense. And then when it changes in the final line, or the final few lines, I forgot which, but when this is basically William leaning over his son on his deathbed and being like, I'm going to bring you back to life. I'm going to fix you. And the two hexadecimal colors are FFF57 from like the 8-bit mini cutscene to to Night 4, and then FFFA0 to the ending. So it is believed that Golden Freddy and Fredbear are 2 animatronics and 1. I've seen theories for both. And then also that Evan haunts Fredbear or Golden Freddy along with Cassidy. So for one, just for reference, I do think they are the same animatronic. I just think that Golden Freddy is a worn down version of Fredbear. The big point, I don't think Evan is haunting Golden Freddy or possessing him. I don't think so. There's no way that Evan would be able to. He doesn't have the power. And if you are thinking, oh my god, it's because of agony, it's not, because Evan is an abused child who is horrified of everything. What I believe he would want is to be able to to move on, to let go. He doesn't want to be present anymore. So anyways, I think Evan does not haunt Golden Freddy because he doesn't want to be here longer than he has to, basically. But William is crazy. So what I think FNAF 4's purpose was not to introduce the Golden Freddy character, but to show why William is the way he is, what made him want to go on this crazy quest. So yeah, I think FNAF 4 was made to show why William is the way he is, and why he's killing, you know, what his goal is. So, also a thing that was commonly associated with Golden Freddy was "It's me," but there's no actual correlation to Golden Freddy. It was just like picked up to mainly be with him. But there's, you know, scenes where Bonnie says it, or, you know, just other animatronics end up saying it. So this phrase does not correlate with Golden Freddy. There's no reason why, you know, Evan could be saying "it's me" to Michael, because it's not him. Like, I don't think Evan is... my hair's longer. Anyways, I don't think it's Evan. So I don't think It's Me correlates with Evan specifically. Anyways, so now back on track. We're almost done with FNAF 4. Back on track, the grief of his favorite son's death, William has decided that he needs to bring him back. Stupid fucking gnat. Anyways, so because of the grief of his favorite son's death, William has decided to be like, hey, I really need my son back. I'm literally gonna go crazy if I don't. So he's started to create new ways to try and bring him back, to try and discover this quest to bring back people from the dead or immortality. So that's why he has created illusion discs and, ways to hold children captive, the FNAF 5 animatronics. And then there are no specific experiments at the moment because he doesn't know about Remny or Agony. He's only in the developing stages. So, quick recap. It's Evan's birthday, and Evan isn't happy about having to be in the pizzeria because Michael has made him fear the animatronic versions of his favorite cartoon characters. I talked really fast. Michael throws Evan into Fredbear's mouth, and in order to get away from the chaos of a dysfunctional family, Evan decides to move on and death the flatline in Night 6. This sends William into a frenzy for immortality. So, now we're on to FNAF 2, 1987. So, quick reference, this is open alongside FNAF 5. FNAF 5 is a sister location of FNAF 2. Fredbear's Family Diner is closed, and this is the first restaurant in the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria franchise. So not Fredbear's Family Diner anymore. We're out of that. So yeah, take into mind that this is open alongside FNAF 5 for when I go over the FNAF 5 stuff, and I may mention or reference FNAF 5 occasionally, which will be explained in the FNAF 5 section. So, Michael is not the night guard in this game because he is currently in the FNAF 5 place. FNAF 5 is sister location. And he's helping out his father regarding Elizabeth. So, the current night guard is Jeremy Fitzgerald, who we play as, and, the paycheck. And so, all of the Fredbear Family Diner animatronics are stored in the parts and services room, which is basically like the FNAF 1 safe room. Spring Bonnie is not seen, however, most likely in a part of the room that is not visible, such as directly underneath the camera. So I know that that's where all of the withered animatronics fly, but we also see all of those animatronics in the show, so we can assume that they were at least being built and just possibly not put into use yet. Henry, by this point, is a little suspicious of William. He's like, oh, I don't feel safe around you at the moment. I don't want my daughter around you. I don't think she would be safe. So he decides to create his own animatronic and safety system, ensuring that his daughter would always be watched out for. He creates the puppet and the color bracelet system. So what this means is that every child is given a different color bracelet, and Charlotte is always going to be given green. So the puppet will always be assigned to watch over green. And at some point, a child is outside of the window, which is Charlotte, and William has placed boxes atop of the puppet's box, forcing the lid to be shut, which means that the puppet can't save Charlotte from basically being killed. She's killed in a drive-by by William, which is the take cake to the children minigame. And when the puppet goes out to retrieve her, it's raining. So the malfunctioning puppet still crawls over, eventually resting on top of her as if protecting her from the outside. They stay there together until death. Feeling sorrow and frustration or agony, Charlotte becomes transferred to the puppet by being inside and latching onto the AI. So Charlotte otherwise does not have a way to really connect, and yes, you can say it's because of Remnant, but I personally don't know how Henry found out about Remnant. I haven't looked it up, and I completely forgot to, honestly. But, so for the sake of this, she latched on thanks to the puppets already, thanks to the puppet already having a remnant in it and everlasting agony within her by being killed in such, you know, an inconvenient way, I guess. I don't know. Either way. Midnight Motorists, I love the game. Can you tell? So much lore in it. So Midnight Motorists is kind of like a part 2 of this night when Charlotte is killed. And we know that it's a part 2 for 2 reasons mainly, which is the file name being later that night and having very similar rain effects, graphics, and sounds. The Bite of 87 takes place, and this is obviously a very big commotion for the restaurant. The victim is the actual night guard, which is Jeremy, but currently to this day, it is still unknown who the Bite of 87, like who it was actually committed by. Yeah, so even to this day, it is not known who committed the Bite of 87. I personally have always been like, Mangle did it. But recently I have discovered more evidence pointing towards Toy Chica of all animatronics. I don't have much evidence because I don't want to focus too much on this, but so for Mangle, we obviously know the unhinged jaw, but then there's also a complication to that because how could it bite down because it's a loose jaw, it's broken. And then also, you know, the jump scare coming from the top, you know, that is obviously a big component in that. But Toy Chica's, you know, evidence is in the FNAF 4 minigame. Why would tiny Toy Chica be missing her beak? Because it's detachable. And because it's detachable, it's able to easily flit what would be the frontal lobe, the sides of it. So yeah, her mouth is just wide enough to fit it, and then also her whole gimmick is eating, so it would make sense that she's biting into the lobe because biting has to do with eating. Anyways, so it's not relevant really. Bite of 87 actually isn't that important, but in this case I'm going to say Toy Chica committed the Bite of 87. So William is upset with Henry, extremely jealous and not envious, jealous that he has a happy life with his daughter and he isn't going through such an intense stage of grief. So this is when he actually commits the murder. Before it was just like why Henry created the puppet, but now he's actually committed the murder after the Bite of 87. So yeah, out of a jealous and drunken rage, he kills Charlotte, leaving her out to die, and then the puppet comes out to save her, which is the security puppet minigame in FNAF 6. At some point, the restaurant is complained about the puppet having like a sort of odor, and just other general issues that would be caused by, you know, a possession, basically. So William comes back to the restaurant and ends up examining the animatronic, and this is according to Google because I don't know how else, so I'm just going based off of what Google says. He ends up severing the arm of the puppet and setting it on fire in the process, which is how he finds out about Remnant. I don't know if it's true. Google says it, so. Then light Remnant ends up pouring out because Remnant has 2 different forms. There's dark Remnant and light Remnant. But yes, light Remnant ends up pouring out, and this makes him very intrigued, so he ends up using Remnant to further his experiments in FNAF 5 and putting it into the scooper because there's a little place at the bottom where you can insert Remnant, and then also putting it into Baby and, you know, the other animatronics and everything. And then FNAF 1 is in the works of being created, but it isn't actually made yet. But yeah, anyways, Henry ends up cutting himself off completely from William, obviously because of the death of his daughter. And he's sent into an insane depression, which is where Charlie ends up being created. This is just like, I haven't actually read it, so I don't know if this actually happens, but it would make sense. And this is where the Twisted One comes in. Henry But prior to this, it's just Henry stating how it wasn't supposed to be like this, now it's all a mess, which is the FNAF world line. Throughout all of this, Henry still keeps an eye on the Aftons. He's still watching them because he's like, oh my god, William's actually batshit. So he knows something is bound to come, and he stays on the sidelines. Only when Pizzeria Simulator comes around does he decide to take action. So the withered animatronics end up becoming the FNAF 1 animatronics because the FNAF 2 animatronics have facial recognition, which is linked to a criminal database, which is said by Phone Guy. However, the technology regarding the facial recognition is not up to par, so this becomes a worry. So by FNAF 1, they are scrapped due to possible malfunctions, which is the end of shift FNAF 2 newspaper. Also, they were linked to a criminal database because William was worried about Charlotte. This is the only thing I can think of. I'm thinking of that on the spot. So, most of the animatronics are scrapped, or at least not present, and the only one who we know is present is the puppet, because the puppet is present within FNAF 6, and obviously because the puppet is trapped within Lefty. Anyways, so recap of FNAF 2. This is the first restaurant, Jeremy as the guard. Henry is suspicious of William, so he creates the puppet and the bracelet color coding safety system. William bypasses this and kills Charlotte outside of the restaurant, where the puppet ends up saving her and the kid possesses it. William discovers Remnant and needs to know more. Henry cuts off contact with William, and then his own story takes off within the books. The withered animatronics become the FNAF 1 ones, and the puppet was present in FNAF 1 because they weren't scrapped for FNAF 6. They had to be somewhere alive and roaming. So, FNAF 5, once again, overlapping FNAF 2. Now we move on from Fazbear's Pizzeria and on to Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, also known as Circus Baby's Pizza World. This happens, obviously, after William has discovered the Remnant, and obviously the changes to the animatronics are still happening, though. So, when first loading up the game, you are greeted with a cutscene of someone asking William about the Funtime animatronics design choices. And this is referring to the Scooper and, Baby's Scooper and Funtime Foxy's voice mimicking, and Freddy's, obviously, the chest cavity he has. So, because now William knows about Remnant, he decides to make machinery for it and places it in the sister location, which is still open during the day. He does this because the Funtimes already have their ways of luring and capturing children, and it makes more sense overall. There is a compartment at the bottom of the Scooper, or the SCUP, where Remnant is stored, and this is how William gathers it. I'm gonna go get... I'll be back. Hold on. My throat. I got Sonic the Hedgehog apple juice because it's yummy. Okay. So Michael is the security guard because William asked Michael to keep an eye on Elizabeth because obviously he would fail to do so. Elizabeth is the forgotten one. So, this was partially a diversion so that Michael wouldn't gather suspicions about William's activities, but he also didn't mean to. Michael ended up being a meat shield for William. So, Ballora is not possessed by Mrs. Afton because she's left long before this has occurred. She left when Charlotte was killed. There's no way William could have, grabbed a body and transferred it into a suit at this point. Like, when I say long gone, I don't mean long gone because it obviously hasn't been that long. It's only been like a few days, if that. But you know what I mean. Like, there's no way it could have occurred. Even if the, her song, All I See is an Empty Room, No More Joy, an Empty Tomb, could be representing the FNAF 4 girls room, or, like a remembrance towards her. She could not have been stuffed into the suit without having suspicions, which is a main connector when it comes to possession in the FNAF 5 world. In the FNAF world. My throat's literally gonna kill me. Anyways, so Baby is known to be Elizabeth's vessel. Obviously, Elizabeth haunts Baby. And Elizabeth has always wanted to go up to Baby and see her, thinking William had designed her after her. And when William wasn't paying attention to Elizabeth, because she never gets a reply to her asking, hey, Daddy, let me go, up to those animatronics. Let me go up to Baby. I want to go see her. Didn't you make her just for me? All that kind of stuff. She ends up getting scooped. And because of Baby's code, it only lets her use it when, Elizabeth's the only one around. And also, this is in order to capture more bodies for more remnant experiments. Elizabeth adored and admired her father's work, so this only adds to her wanting to see Baby. William did not want Elizabeth to be scooped, especially after Evan had died, but he has a thing for neglecting his kids, so even when she asked, she was being ignored, he didn't answer. So when she was left alone with Baby, she was scooped, then using Remnant, her consciousness became trapped. Baby also has Remnant stored within her, like, for these purposes and everything. So, by using Remnant, a lot of Remnant, Ballora, Funtime Foxy, Funtime Freddy, Bon Bon, and Baby end up becoming Ennard. They form an amalgamation of them all and take the clown mask from the module room in FNAF 5 because it's not there on FNAF. I keep saying FNAF in Night 5 because it's not there in FNAF. In Night 5 it's not there, so we know that they took it. So they form Ennard, Funtime Foxy, Freddy, Baby. They were all used to capture kids. And then I believe that once Ennard is created, Baby actually ejects herself. She is not rejected from, the group. I believe that, she leaves on her own, and Freddy is left to basically control Molten Freddy, or, soon to be Molten Freddy. This is how they survive the FNAF fire. It's, controlling AI things, because that's the only way that they could have survived, unless it's the Mimic, which is another thing that I don't know a ton about, so I don't want to make any theories regarding it. I'm going to hope that the Mimic is true, and that William did die after FNAF, 6 in the fire. So I'm going to hope that the Mimic is true, and probably end up doing more research on it once I make another thing of this, including Security Breach, but that's for another day. So Funtime Freddy's body is Ennard's body, and that's why he is the head of the group. Anyways, so Ennard, with all the fun times and Baby included, lures Michael into the scooping room with the illusion discs to cover up the voices and trick him. Sorry. So Michael kind of accepts this fate once he's inside the room with no escape, even if he's extremely agonized and angry. Because of the remnant in the scooper, he is able to continue living onward because the scooper has a remnant injector. So he's injected with remnant from the bottom compartment. And then once Ennard leaves his body, that's how he's able to continue living, because of the metal that Ennard must have left, because obviously not all of Ennard left. That's the way that Michael is able to continue living, because a remnant that was trapped within him that's also trapped to the metal pieces that Ennard left behind. So, because of the scooper's functions, that's how he was able to continue, because he was injected with remnant. Elizabeth doesn't want harm to come to Michael, so as a sort of an apology, she kind of helps him stay alive. That's why I think she ends up, leaving the body, forcing everyone to. So, When Elizabeth says, "You won't die," it's referring to Michael living. And so yeah, like what I said, I think what happens is Elizabeth forces Ennard out of the body, leaving remnant inside of Michael and AI/electronic pieces in Ennard, like that were part of Ennard's remains. Then from there, I think that Eddie's AI and Elizabeth form two groups. So they form Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy. Also, the line, "You won't die, but you'll wish you could," refers to the way that even after being scooped, you never truly die. Your insides are scooped, obviously, and Elizabeth knows that, you know, something happened because of Baby Scooper, but she also knows this to a simpler degree, that you might not die if you get scooped. She doesn't know about Remnant or anything, obviously, but she knows that she stayed alive somehow. So, like I said, to a simpler degree. It'll only hurt for a moment also supports this because Baby knows it'll only hurt for a moment before you die. Anyways, yeah, Baby then kicks herself out, and, you know, there's Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy. Freddy is the head of the group once again. And then the Restless and the Immortal. Oh, okay. So at the end of each night, you're left in a TV, like staring at a TV. That's the scene I was talking about in Midnight Motorist, when you see a figure sitting on a couch watching a TV. That's Michael coming home from a shift, watching TV, watching The Restless and the Immortal. And The Restless and the Immortal is a retelling of the Aftons story. So a father who doesn't recognize or acknowledge his child very much, which is Elizabeth, and then like a scapegoat or a retelling of his father, which is Michael, or like of his father, which is like the Michael aspect of the children. At the end, the house burns, literally burns, just like in Pizzeria Simulator. Evan isn't included because he's already died and moved on, and he's gone. He's not coming back. The only one in the series who doesn't. So recap, in Circus Baby's Pizza World, William hires Michael to watch over Elizabeth while he deals with redesigning and FNAF 2. She ends up dying by Baby's hands and then ends up luring Michael into the scooping room, only allowing him a second chance at life thanks to Remnant. So, on to FNAF 1. We're almost done. We're about halfway through. So, that's good. Anyways, so starting in 1988, but ending in 1993, which is implied based off the hourly wage. So this is another, sorry, my headphone is hurting my ear. This is another Fazbear restaurant that takes place about 5 years after FNAF 5 and FNAF 2. Much of this game is just pieces of the lore regarding the first few characters, so it's very short. Michael ends up realizing his mistakes later on, and he wants to atone for, you know, basically killing his brother by helping stop the Fazbear, you know, upcomings. He doesn't want it to continue. He doesn't want these murders to continue anymore. So, Mike works the night shift for the first 5 nights before Michael kills Mike and takes over the 6th night. So he needed to kill in order to go in because no one would hire someone who looks like a deceased mutated corpse. His rotting body contributes to the odor reason he got fired, and the need to help the animatronics was tampering with the animatronics. So, also, general unprofessionalism was just because he didn't care enough to stay. Like, he knows he's not going to be there for very long, so, like, why try to be professional? And then, since no one watches, you know, him kill Mike or, like, even knows that he has been, like, you know, replaced or whatever, he can go in looking like the corpse, because no one is there when he goes in. William kills the first 5 kids, and this is what is labeled as the MCI, or the Missing Children's Incident. I do know about the 1985 murders, but I can't really, like, find out who the murders were. And I've done, you know, like hours of research on it, but I just can't find it. So I probably missed it, or I probably overlooked something. But either way, we know that the first is Susie, or Chica, out of the murders, and she's killed by William when her dog is, you know, William basically kills her dog and lures her, as a kidnapper would do, as if like a, you know, oh, you know, don't follow the stranger who has candy, or is, you know, missing his dog, which is something we all learned as a child. And he's dressed in the Spring Bonnie suit, which we all know is, like, we know this all from the Fruity Maze minigame in Pizza Simulator. He kills the other kids, no particular order how they were killed. We just know that Gabriel, Freddy, Jeremy, Bonnie, Fritz, Foxy, and Cassidy, Golden Freddy, were stuffed into the respective suits. So the puppet within the vicinity, because that's the only way I can think of it, is able to give gifts, give life to the kids. So the spirits are chasing William. The FNAF 3 end of, you know, the game cutscene or whatever. The spirits are chasing William, trapping him in the safe room, and here he is spring-locked by the rain, left to die by the spirits. Cassidy is the one chasing him. The only logical reasoning I can come up with for him being able to live so long is Remnant, because no matter the conditions, Remnant will keep a human alive. And then, most likely while experimenting with the substance, he must have ingested some, and then he was spring-locked, the Remnant attaching onto Spring Bonnie. That's why he's alive. And then the reason he doesn't leave right away is because the strain on him is like a ton, and since it's too much, he's unable to move, and then the wall is boarded up. So yeah. Really quickly, after bad business and no one willing to buy it, because that was mean being associated with the Fazbear name, it was forced to close down, the FNAF 1 restaurant. So, recap. Michael kills Mike on night 6 in order to get the job and be able to explore the FNAF place to help the kids, or at least see them. He tampers with the animatronics in order to do this. William kills the MCI victims, and they end up trapping him in the safe room as it rains. Forced into the suit and nowhere else to go, he is locked up and sprung-locked. So, on to FNAF 3. Only 2 more games. Well, 3 if you include UCN, but that's up to you if you want to include it. So, only 2 more confirmed games. We're almost done. Anyways, so FNAF 3, which takes place in 2023, it's 30 years after FNAF 1. So Fazbear Frights is the horror attraction which is based off of the murders that happened before. This is the second introduction to the franchise within, like, you know, being based off of something else, which is Fredbear's and Friends to Fredbear's Family Diner. And then, you know, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to Fazbear Frights. So, this is canonly the last one, but if you go past Pizza Simulator or UCN, technically there's a third because of, you know, FNAF VR. But anyways, I'm not going to include that because that's a whole other thing. So, because of his experiments, William, we can infer, was dealing closely with Remnant, and he must have ingested some at some point, or somehow had it enter his system, because that's the only way, obviously, he would have been able to stay alive for so long. William was trapped in the same room for 30 years. Because of Remnant, he doesn't need to eat or anything like that. And then this is just an assumption, because I wanted to find a way to include this, but the FNAF 3 minigames are just visions showing what happened, like how all the murders happened, or how they were lured, or in some capacity what occurred. Not necessarily correct, obviously, because what is, you know, seen in the mind of a child is easily misunderstood. But, you know, something along those lines. And then he ends up getting out of the safe room because people are tearing down the building for the attraction, and they decide he's worthy enough to be the sole animatronic there, so he's added on the second night. Michael is aware that there's only Springtrap in the building, but since he knows about it all, he's able to make the hallucinations appear. So since he knows about all the animatronics, all the murders, it makes him fearful and paranoid, which is why the hallucinations end up coming up. So this is mainly because of paranoia and bad ventilation, but it could technically be part of illusion discs, although I have no proof of that, so I'm not going to say it is. So Michael is the security guard, still attempting, even after all these years, to put a stop to his father and atone for what had happened. No news was heard about, William's death. So just to be safe, Michael takes up the job, also because it's part of the FNAF franchise and he wants to be involved in that franchise as much as possible, even though he obviously wants to get away. So, even if there's just a chance, Michael wants to end everything regarding that restaurant, that franchise. So, the line, "Father, it's me, Michael," is Michael talking to his father, obviously. Realizing he's alive after all these years has definitely been a shock, but at this point, Michael is just trying to survive. It wasn't his intention to burn the building, but once it starts, due to barely functional equipment, phone guy, and bad ventilation, he doesn't stop it. I mean, Michael only tries to escape, and William unknowingly is able to leave through the vents, although that, like I said, wasn't known at the time. So the ending scene with Springtrap is supposed to let the player know that he's alive and still needs to be killed. And then this is where Pizza Simulator comes in. So in the good ending, almost every spirit is released. Bonnie. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy's souls are released, but when it comes to Golden Freddy, Cassidy is not released. She is the vengeful spirit, if that wasn't obvious. The kids, assuming William has now died, let go of their agony and moved on. When the minigames are completed, it's when the minigames are completed, the good ending appears, and that's kind of letting you know that that's when the children are able to move on, because that's Michael, trying to atone for everything. But if they are not completed, the kids have not moved on. So this is basically them allowing themselves to have like that one final moment of childhood before they can actually say, okay, it happened, I'm ready to move on, man. So then like I said, FNAF 3 is really short. So quick recap: the murders are being capitalized on, and William was trapped behind a fake wall, unable to leave because of the pain that the suit caused. Michael is the night guard, and William, after the first night, is taken in to be the sole animatronic for the place. Eventually, the building is burned down, and Michael, and secretly William, find means of escape. The spirits let go of their anger under the assumption that William is dying and will be dead, but Golden Freddy does not. So, finally, last game. We're on to the last part. Pizza Simulator. Like I said, if you want to include Ultimate Custom Night, it's a very simple explanation, so I'll do that at the very end. But we're almost done. Okay, almost done. FNAF 6. So the true ending of the game is the fire ending, if that wasn't known. Henry, soon after FNAF 3 burned down, reached out to Michael, seeing that he was a security guard, and asked him to be the security guard for Pizza Simulator because he knew that the animatronics would follow. Along with, Baby and William and Charlotte. So he knew it was just an easy way for the animatronics to slowly but surely end up coming into the restaurant. He knew that they would all, come, and then they would all have a chance at resting peacefully or in hell, ending the catastrophe that occurred. So Michael agrees, obviously, and, is like, okay, I'll do it. So he continues his time as a manager and brings in more animatronics every night as they show up. He does not turn any animatronics away, like in the fire ending, because he knows that they are trapped souls and or people who need to be saved / burned in hell. Plus, this is what he signed up for, and he knows this. So, yeah, he knows there's no escaping it, and he knows exactly what to expect. As the game continues, more arcade games become unlocked, which then unlocks more of the story. Midnight Motorists, a lot, you know. As the game continues, more arcade games are unlocked, which then unlocks more of the story. Midnight Motorists unlocks a lot of FNAF 4 and Charlotte lore. Fruity Maze unlocks Chica lore. Security Puppet unlocks Charlotte lore. And Candy Cadet, who I have not like really dissected yet, but I know that he does tell lore stories. And then, you know, rare ending phrases after salvage, etc. So yeah, I'm gonna explain Midnight Motorists and like, you know, Mrs. Often is dead. The mound of dirt is her grave. And Scott most likely added this to show closure as to why William has always been this sort of lonely, oh, I'm so alone, you know, boo-hoo figure. Anyways, this takes place the night after Charlotte is killed in a jealous rage, and, you know, is left to die. So, the tire marks in the security puppet are him running off, and then he's going to Junior's, which is a bar, and he's going to drink. He's turned away because of the constant drinking to subside the pain of, you know, his son dying, his favorite son. Although the house layout is different, we have to assume that this is the fourth game's house because we just don't have the entire picture and maybe like multiple stories, you know, stuff like that. I know this isn't how it looks in game, but you just gotta go with it because originally I was like, oh, maybe, you know, they moved houses or something like that. And while that could be it, I don't think it is because of the footprints. They can't have moved houses if the footprints are still there, because Michael would have no reason to stand outside for hours on end tormenting a dead kid who's died and not there anymore. So the broken window, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I tried my best to solve it. So it could have been done when William was in a drunken rage. He's most likely verbally abusive, possibly physically. And then, you know, he may have exited through the window. The animatronic footprints are because Michael used to scare Evan, which is the reason he learned to fear, obviously. And then the only reason I can think of for the footprints being indented is, you know, like standing there for so long or leaving the suit there for just so long. In the dreams, he sees nightmare. Sorry, my cat walked in. In the dreams, he sees nightmare animatronics because of the illusion discs, and he's, you know, learned to know them as horrible monstrosities. The other set of footprints, however, I don't know. The only thing I can really think of is at some point Evan was trying to escape the abuse. So I really, Midnight Motorist, that part of the game just stumped me so much that I'm grasping at straws for it. But for the parts it did explain, it explained very well. So Lefty, who the player is encouraged to buy because of the cheap price. Sorry, my hair looked weird. It bothered me. So Lefty, who the player is encouraged to buy because of the very cheap price, is the container for the puppet, so that Henry is sure, like, he's 100% like, my daughter will, you know, die and be released and she will not suffer anymore, which is basically like what he says in the final speech. That's literally Lefty's only purpose. By ending it, Henry burns down the building with remnant, you know, heat and agony dying as well, and takes Michael down with him. The two of them, plus many others, burn with the building. if you continue, like, if you consider the series to continue, the only thing I can really think of is Molten Freddy doesn't burn. He's not controlled by remnants, nor is he stuck by agony, but he is here because of AI. So eventually Burn Trap will end up being like the controller of Molten Freddy, but until that point he really has no controllers, so there's no reason for him to be left behind, or like, sorry, to move on. There's no reason for him to move on because there's no controller. But confirmed, everyone aside from Molten Freddy does end up dying, unless you believe that the Afton is the theory that Afton's AI or like consciousness is glitch trap. But and everyone does die because Pizza Simulator is designed to not have exits. No one is able to leave, so that means anyone within the building, including Afton, will die. So yeah, in the fire ending, Cassidy takes William down to hell with her, and, you know, making him doomed to live in an endless, torturous purgatory. That's what I wrote in my notes. William is, this is if you think UCN is included, but William is stuck in UCN, which is hell, with Cassidy torturing him, considering she's the fandomly widely accepted vengeful spirit. So, recap of FNAF 6. Michael lures the rest of the animatronics inside the building, and when everyone is in, Henry lights the place ablaze. We learn a lot of the lore because of the arcade games too, but yes, by the end of it, everything is burned, and depending on how you view FNAF, everyone is dead. So, that is a quick way to end the series. And then, obviously, UCN is the hell of FNAF, if you believe that UCN is part of the canon lore, which I can understand if you don't. It's already crazy as it is. You don't need another game on top of it. But yeah, that's my version of the lore. My throat is shot. This has taken me like almost an hour and a half to record. But yeah, this is my third attempt at it too, because I almost fell asleep during the other 2 attempts because it got kind of late and I got tired. But yeah, wrapping up. So this is my version of the lore. I have spent at least a good 24 hours on this, but I know that there are probably a lot of parts that either don't work or I missed or something like that, which I'm totally open to criticism about. I know that this is probably not. There are a lot of plot holes. I know that it's perfect. I don't think Scott had a lore in mind when he was creating the whole thing. He just kept adding and adding without actually checking to make sure it worked. So we're just kind of forced to do with what we have, do with it, make sure it makes sense in some capacity, even though it probably never will. Because honestly, I don't think the FNAF lore will ever be solved, no matter what MatPat says, or Reddit theorists, or, you know, random theory channels that make a one-off video. I don't think it'll ever be permanently solved. Hey, Mama. I don't think it'll ever be permanently solved. I don't think anything will come from this. But yeah, so that's what I've spent my past few weeks doing. My hyper-focusing moment has been on FNAF, and I don't regret it. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun doing this. But yeah, so that's the end. If you actually listened for this long, thank you. And a lot of this I gathered from different subreddits and, you know, obviously thought of with my own imagination. So you probably have already heard bits and pieces of this from other places. I don't take credit for a lot of this. I have most of my sources cited, so if you ever want, you know, like a source, I can always give it. I did not watch MatPat's recent FNAF theories. I don't know how much goes over what he wrote and how much goes over what I thought of. And I know that he's like the FNAF lore king, but, you know, thought I'd give it a try. So anyways, that's it. I'm going to go to bed because it's late and I promised my mom I'd be in bed like 10 minutes ago. So I'm gonna do that. Anyway, this is really good. Anyway, thanks for listening, for watching. If this is background noise, I appreciate it. If it isn't, I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Bye.